The band is just fantastic, that is really what I think. Oh, by the way, which one's pink? These lyrics are found on lyricgenius.com. Whether your parents listen to their music, you know friends who do, or you're a fan of them yourself, most people have heard of the band Pink Floyd. But what makes this band so celebrated? What makes their music so transcendent, and how did they develop such a unique sound? Pink Floyd's distinctive and fascinating history helped to make them one of the most influential bands of all time. In this speech, I will explain the formation of the band, the addition of David Gilmour and why it was necessary, and lastly, I will explain the transition of powers from Roger Waters to David Gilmour. There have been 5 men in Pink Floyd. 3 of these men have led the band at different decades. So the question remains, which one's Pink? Pink Floyd's story begins in 1963 in London, England. Roger Waters, Nick Mason, Keith Noble, Claude Middleclaff, and Richard Wright formed a band while at London Polytechnic College. The band changed its name several times, from names such as the T-Set to the Megadeths, but eventually landed on the name Sigma 6. Sigma 6 covered several American and British rock songs, but they didn't seem to be going anywhere. It was then in 1964 that Roger Waters' childhood friend, Syd Barrett, came to London to study painting. Syd joined Sigma 6 and changed the band's name to the Pink Floyd Sound. It was Syd's unique guitar playing and quirky British sound that quickly made him the leader of the band. Pink Floyd at this time began to play at several different nightclubs around London, including the UFO, and became the house band for the underground music movement in London. They started producing their own tracks as well, including Arnold Layne, which was actually the first that got them noticed by several record companies. But it was in 1967 that they decided to sign with EMI, the same record label as the Beatles. In 1967, Pink Floyd also started their first historic album, The Piper at the Gates of Dawn, at Abbey Road Studios. They took advantage of everything that they could at Abbey Road Studios, and eventually came up with their first single, See Emily Play, in 1967. In 1967, Syd also invited his college friend, David Gilmour, to the Abbey Road recording sessions. Gilmour was blown away by what was going on, and at the same time, Syd Barrett began to develop schizophrenic behavior due to his excessive drug habit. The rest of the band decided that Barrett would not be able to continue on touring with the band, and asked David Gilmour if he would like to join to replace Syd. After this, the band began to develop much more of a progressive sound instead of psychedelic. Their second album, Saucerful of Secrets, released in 1968. After this, though, the band struggled for a while without Syd Barrett as their frontman. They did release the album Atom Heart Mother in 1970 during this struggle. The band would also release albums Relics, Metal, and Obscured by Clouds. And after this, they began to feel much more confident in their music. It was in 1973 that Pink Floyd released their #1 album, Dark Side of the Moon, which would go on to stay on charts for 25 years. It was at this time that a record executive in America picked up the album with a cigar in his mouth and asked, "Which one's Pink?" After this, Pink Floyd would release their album Wish You Were Here in 1973. The pyrotechnics in concerts started developing much more, and they started playing much more Roger Waters type of music. It was then in 1977 that they released the album Animals, which was almost written independently by Roger Waters. After releasing Animals, Waters began to work a lot more on his next album, The Wall, which was written independently by Roger Waters. It wasn't long after this that animosity began to develop between Roger Waters and the rest of the band. And shortly after this animosity began, Richard Wright left the band, and Pink Floyd was without a keyboard player. After releasing the final cut, Waters tried to leave Pink Floyd and tried taking Pink Floyd with him. Waters sued for the ownership of Pink Floyd and lost. It was then after this that David Gilmour would lead Pink Floyd successfully for 27 years. When asked about it now, Roger Waters said in a Rolling Stone interview, "I was wrong. Of course I was. Who cares?" Gilmour would release albums Momentary Lapse of Reason in '87, The Division Bell in 1994, and The Endless River in 2014. And it would be 22 years till all four of Pink Floyd's members would play together again at Live 8. Pink Floyd's ability to maintain their signature sound and overcome difficult odds helped to produce some of the best music of all time. Not many other bands can say they survived losing a frontman. Pink Floyd can say they did, twice. Pink Floyd's music will continue to inspire future generations for centuries. They always managed to capture the spirit of the time they were playing in, and for this reason, their music is eternal. Thanks.
Yay!
Awesome.
All right.
Glad you got
Bye.
around that.